Yeah, what's good, Joe? It's your man, the Bigga P, and here to share my thoughts on the fights that happened on ESPN and HBO just yesterday. Before I go into those fights, though, just want to take I just want to talk about another fight that happened yesterday too, but it was on Showtime. It was on Showtime stream. The James DeGale Caleb Truax title fight. Uh, who saw that coming? Yeah, that was incredible. Apparently, Caleb Truex. He came there to fight. He had a plan, and he was in enemy territory, and he enforced it well. Surprisingly, in the fifth round, I think he almost came close to knocking DeGale out, and then DeGale was leaking all over the place. Uh, so as for DeGale, I just don't. My thoughts are that pretty much the Jack fight probably took it out of him. You remember earlier that fight. It's one of the damnedest fights you'll see at 168. It's still. It's still a leading fight of the year candidate, top three fight for this year, and even though the effort that he gave him, he still took an incredible beating in that fight. He had like injuries, missing teeth, slurring his words, his messed up shoulder. He had rib issues. He was a mess after that fight, and that's why he was gone so long. So when he came back, you're thinking that he would at least, maybe an extended rest would do him some good. But he looked bad from jump. He looked tentative. He looked a little slow. His reflexes looked a little slow. He spent, for someone, he's got trapped too many times in the ropes or in the corner. He looked terrible. But to his credit, though, he did show some of the grit that did make him what he was before. He did fight back even after that disastrous fifth round where he almost got KO'd, but Caleb just was on him. Um, he banked enough rounds until I think probably maybe the last couple of rounds that I was thinking, okay, that DeGale, those were DeGale rounds, especially the 12th round, because I thought Truex, was foolish to just start throwing up his hands and saying that, thinking that he won the fight, and you can't do that, especially in England. Um, but turns out he was correct, and an upset. And I saw that Truex was like a 50-1 underdog in some places. I mean, it was one of those fights where I obviously I wanted to just the one because I was more interested to see what DeGale was gonna be like after this layoff. But apparently now, Truex. No disrespect to Truex. Truex is a good, solid. Is a solid fight. He's a good hand. But he's a guy that has lost to every time he stepped up. He lost. He lost. He lost his 0 to Jermaine Taylor. Damaged. Even though he had a moment where he knocked him down, and then afterwards he was toyed with Danny, and then got put out in the final round, and then not even that long ago he was knocked out and won by Anthony Durrell. Which was kind of surprising to me. So like I said, he's a good hand or whatever, but you don't think that Caleb Truex would actually become world champion, but he did. It wasn't even like you can't even say like robbery or anything like that. The scores were I think it was like 115, 112, 112, and then one judge had a draw. He won the fight. I think I had it 115 to 114 because I thought there were a lot of close rounds, and apparently like a lot of the close rounds in that fight was given to Caleb. But props on him. That's probably the upset of the year, if anything. And regarding Miguel was talking about there was no rematch clause. So what I'm thinking is that DeGale probably needs a rest and probably needs a change in trainers at this time. He needs something because like I said, I think he got his nose broken this fight. He's still a physical mess. Um, Caleb, Caleb probably more than anything probably deserves to sit at least one fight to sit on this title a little bit. But then I have a feeling IBF's not going to do it because they have an interim belt out there with Andre Durrell holding it, and I know Andre Durrell might be on contract to face Uzkateki again in the rematch. So I'm thinking either, unless IBF forces either a fight with him or the winner of Darrell and Uzcategui, um, those are gonna be his next fight. That's gonna be one of those. Is gonna be his Caleb's next fight. Or maybe if he's lucky that he can actually probably get maybe one defense in, maybe a hometown defense. But I just don't see I just don't see him holding that belt for very long, depending on because of the whole round robin that's going on with that title. And then of course, if he actually does survive all that, you got the Wolves that are coming after. The Wolves are gonna be coming off the woodworks. Especially some of the 168 champions. I know they're like they're looking at him like he's fresh meat. But hey, we'll see where that goes. So yeah, first I'll talk about the top ranked card, of course, Lomachenko versus Rigondeaux. Um, Overall, the card was not great at all. The commentating was boring. Uh, Say what you want about Teddy Atlas, but Teddy is a very passionate man, for lack of a better word, and he's a very passionate man about boxing. And pretty much, from the Friday night fights and everything like that, he brings a certain type of personality. I've been to Friday night fights before, and I've actually sat near him. I've actually seen him operate. He's an interesting guy to see operate when he does his thing, and then you see why he's so fired up most of the time. But yeah, the guy is fired up about boxing, and like him and Tessitore, those are the guys, and then Kelly, you have your third man or whatever. In this particular case, these days it's been Tim Bradley, and I was like, oh, you get used to someone like that, and in fact, I would say more surprised it was Tim Bradley that was doing the commentating because Tim's been having some problems with his commentary lately. I still can't forget the stuff that he was talking about versus Pac versus Horn. Um, where I'm thinking either the alcohol got to him or something got to him. Or most likely it was the alcohol. He had him because he was just saying all types of random stuff that night. Um, but he was the commentator, and then and then a couple other guys. I mean, one of them who couldn't raise his voice enough for me to even hear what he had to say. And then they brought back Stephen A, who really, I know, he's at this point they're probably bringing him back is Stephen A is probably just learning enough so he can fake it. But in this particular case, all he's doing these days, he doesn't really add much to them. I know he tried to get a response out of Terrence Crawford, but Crawford wasn't trying to say anything, other than we'll see what's gonna happen. That's fine, that's what this thing is. But yeah, Stephen A on these boxing things, it just rubs me the wrong way because it's like, I mean, I know the guy's probably trying to, learn as much as he can, but it's just like he doesn't belong here yet. But for whatever reason though, he's fallen to a shtick with being the screaming foil again for Teddy Atlas. I guess that's been like the popular thing. But the broadcast could have needed a Teddy Atlas. It was just lifeless. The undercard for this, Shakur did what did what he usually did. Basically he just beat up on a guy that was just. I don't think he really hurt the guy all that much. He just landed on him at will, like 52-4. I think that was like the punch count, man. And then the ref just like, you know what? Yeah, well let's stop this. And then Conlon went the distance for the first time, and he didn't really impress me either. It was, because I know Conlon had been stopping all his other opponents, but this one it was just like he was stuck. He stayed in the first game, and didn't and that's where he stood. Um, the Diaz versus Cruz fight was pretty interesting. It's not too many times I see like fighters hit the stanky leg like 3 times in the fight. And that was the co-main fight too, and it was quick and it was vicious and it was efficient. So, um, yeah, Cruz is just I think it wasn't his night. I think that's all you can really say. Also too, I think they mentioned that he had fought like 3 weeks before that. So, good. Granted, obviously I didn't see that fight. I don't know if that was an easy fight for him or it wasn't. But apparently, probably was too soon for this type of fight. for him. So that's sometimes that's the way the cookie crumbles. And then we have our main event. Now this main event has gotten all the hype for this main event. Sans ESPN, because I don't think ESPN really did anything to even market this fight really, but it had a lot of buzz around the hardcores. I know. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, it was buzzing hard. It's like, oh, you have two former two-time gold medalists, and they're meeting in the professional. They're meeting in professional. The scales are gonna be off the chain. You got Rigondeaux, who never lost before, who hasn't lost since the amateurs, and you have Lomachenko, who's been stopping all these 130 fighters. Excuse me. And oh, this is that, and now I did now. Obviously, yes, and I understand. Yes, the skill level in this fight would be high, but that I wasn't sipping the Kool Aid when people were talking about, okay, this is going to be a fight of the year. Nah, no, 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 no. Because both those two fighters are not known for putting out any type of fight of the year type caliber fights. Um, I think probably the closest for Rigondeaux might even be either the Cordoba fight when it was on Pac and Margarita, or that fight against Amagasa, the Japanese fighter that knocked him down twice. Lomachenko, I think the closest he had to a fight of that caliber was just is the Salido fight, which he lost that fight. And that was that was the one thing that kept on against Weapon Road. It's like, oh, Lomachenko's this. He's the next Ali. He's the next Sugar Ray Robinson. Oh, he's the next Desert Person. I mean, and you say all this, but the man has a loss, a clear, decisive loss to Orlando Salido, barring everyone's like the weight advantage and all that sort of stuff, but it doesn't stop that Salido boxed his head off for like 8 rounds before the weight caught up to him. So yes, had had all this hype on paper. It's like the room in MGM, Madison Square Garden was sold out. Everything was sold out, and you're like, hey, this is good for boxing. Now I'm like telling myself, okay, this fight has to actually deliver in order for that shit to raise the profile. And then pretty much this year in terms of high profile fights that that raised the level, like Klitschko versus Joshua, that was a fight that had a buzz on paper, and then they delivered in the ring, which is probably the leading fight of the year candidate. So I had slim hopes. I was hoping that would happen for this fight, even though slim shows because the way they fight is not necessarily that won't be a that wouldn't really be a thing. And I was right in saying that. It was a gun shy fight. I mean, it was just Rigondeaux. I mean, part of it was his size advantage was too much, but then pretty much Rigondeaux was just, I think it was all he was doing was just ducking underneath, and then once he was ducking underneath, he didn't really do anything. Then, I mean, there wasn't anything he could do. I think there wasn't any step backs or anything like that. It's like he never got his offense going. He never got a jab going. Lomachenko's jab, he did get it going, and it got to the point where as Rigondeaux was looking for counters, Lomachenko was opposing his size and opposing jabs going again, and then he was landing like triple uppercuts, stuff like that. And Rigondeaux wasn't hurt or anything like that, but you can see that Lomachenko was, even with some of the night, was closing the gap, and it was getting to the point where he was getting very close to probably landing something that would either knock him down or whatever. Not necessarily knock him up, but just knock him down. So yeah, as Lomachenko closed the gap in the ring, the scores were pretty much, man, you can give Rigo 1 round. And then, of course, in the 7th round, he was like, yeah, you can't continue. And a climactic finish to a fight that never really got going in that aspect. So it was very disappointing on many different levels. It's disappointing because, like I said, it was one of those fights that says, oh, because boxing, for the most part, takes a lot of criticism for big marquee fights that don't deliver. It's been a thing it's been happening for a minute. And this was a marquee fight, and it didn't. It might actually probably be one of the worst fights of the year. Um, and then I feel sorry for. I mean, Lomachenko. I mean, he was like, "Oh, hey, no, this didn't mean anything. I just dragged up a guy 2 weight divisions." But he's still gonna get all the attention in the world for actually beating Rigo and taking his 0. I mean, even though Rigo isn't, I mean, he's jumped up 2 divisions. I mean that's the way it goes. And then Rigo himself, I mean, he was talking all this, talking all that, and didn't do anything. And Rigo, this is one of those guys. Rigo is one of the few fighters I actually believe that there is something working against him because his style is not the most marketable style. It's not really entertaining for people to watch because he's a counterpuncher in every sense of the word. The way he fights is it's not an entertaining way of fighting, and for most to watch. And then he had managed to drum up a lot of support based off that happening because after the initial split with Top Rank, he was overseas, and then he had a spot on Canelo Cotto, and wasn't really good. Wasn't a good fight to watch. Um, he does what he does. I mean, he's a very stubborn, hard-headed man. Um, and he won't change how he does for anything. And I think this is where now this is gonna bite him in the ass because it's like you talk all this, you talk all that, and you didn't even go out on your shield. So I mean, Rigo's U.S. career might be in jeopardy if not a wrap. I mean, it's gonna. I mean, barring some. I mean, I don't know how his promoter's actually gonna move him going forward. And the worst thing for him too is because the WBA is like, you lose this fight, you're losing your 122 belt, which is absolute bullshit. He's the man in that division. Um, so he lost his title in that fight. And so now that WBA belt is vacant. It's and which is incredibly stupid. It shouldn't be. Um, they could have worked out a deal for it. But yeah, I just feel for him because, like I said, the man has been through legitimately a lot, and like no one. And after this now, like where now a fight of his has that casual attention. They're not. He's not gonna. He's not gonna fight. And on top of that, he's 37. Um, there are no old men in these lower divisions, especially under like 130. 130 and down. There are no old men in these divisions. And I don't see anyone breaking the mold. Rigo just took his first professional loss. He may take another one, depending on but I don't think his next couple fights would be in America. They would probably be in Europe or Japan or whatever. Um, I just feel bad in that situation because, like I said, it was just one of those fights pushed um, that should have pushed things forward, and it was turned out to be not the case. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes for his fight going forward. I mean, as for Lomachenko, his top 10 or whatever, reads like a who's who for 126, 130. Right now he's probably. If he's not, I still hesitate to call him pound for pound number one, but he's up there. He's like top 3. He has to be, based off his current active resume. Um, I think right now, I think it might be. Probably strengthen that is that I think it might be time for him to go for some unifications at 130. Start getting some of those belts around his waist. Unifying the title. He has plenty of time to do it. Might as well start doing it now. But yeah, that top rank card was disappointing. It went by fast, and like I said, overall it was just flat. It wasn't a good card really good card from top to bottom. So disappointed with the product. It is what it is. Meanwhile, too, HBO had their own card going on in Vegas. It's pretty much the 130 card headlined by Salido versus Roman. The first fight would be Francisco Vargas coming back, from his earlier fight this January against Burchett versus Stephen Smith. And then pretty much the question is, could Vargas' face hold up? Because, Vargas had a 3-fight stretch which would have probably ended a lesser fighter's career, for sure. But that did not turn out to be the case. Vargas came back, and him and Stephen Smith they had a good tear up. Um, pretty good for 8, 9 rounds. It was just good infighting. Um, the only thing for Vargas was that they had a little swelling underneath the eye, but other than that, no wild cuts or anything like that that he suffered in some of his last couple fights. Um, and then the fight ended in the ninth round when Steven Smith's ear, and it's pretty much one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen. I've seen a lot of disgusting things in boxing. I mean, in HBO, they love doing these close-ups, and this is HD. We live in the age of HD. You can see the top of his ear just peeling off. I mean, it's just bloody and pumping blood. It was just so gross. I had to turn away. It was making me a little squeamish. So yeah, you can't fight someone like that. I mean, because pretty much it's getting to the point, where another well played shot. I think it was a headbutt that caused that. I thought it was a punch. One of the many it was the infighting, and then that turned out to be. They said it was a headbutt. I was like, damn, shit. So they went to the cards, and pretty much Vargas won on all 3 cards. Clear. He looked good. I guess in this particular case, unlike DeGale, his his rest, his 11-month rest was well needed. Was much needed, and it seemed to have benefited him. So we'll see how he goes. He has to get himself back in the swing of things at 130. The second fight would be for the vacant IBF belt that Tank lost on the scales back in August. It would be Tevin Farmer versus Kenichi Ogawa, and that fight is this. I was looking forward to this fight for a lot of reasons too. I mean, Tevin Farmer was the guy. I mean, very slick fighter, very slick defensive fighter, very good. He's a very good fighter, and I know he's had a couple of issues, like he got shot in his hand, and then he ripped his bicep in his last fight. So it was like he had a lot of things going against him. On top of just being someone that's has went through a lot of the hardships in the sport. You want to see him succeed, and then you have a goal who I have absolutely know nothing about. But one thing that I've always known is you can't sleep on an Asian. You cannot sleep on a random Asian fighter because you just never know what type of performance that they will deliver. So the fight itself wasn't. I mean, it was okay. It wasn't. It was. I mean, well, Ogawa, moved forward, and Farmer, very slick. Occasionally landed some hard left counters and everything like that. He did that a lot, and what I suspect is probably an issue with what he did in that particular fight. In this particular fight, is I think he was too slick. Like, I mean, there could have been a couple of rounds, especially in the last couple, where he could have pushed his ground more and really have tried to put Ogawa away. I mean, Ogawa didn't really have anything. I mean, all Ogawa was doing, he was jabbing in, trying to throw a right hand, and he was just, and Farmer was doing this, doing that, moving to the left, moving to the right. I mean, he wasn't really caught with anything that he was like, yeah, I'm getting hurt. But even then, at the end of the fight, I thought Farmer won that handily, man. I thought Farmer probably won that fight. I think it was like maybe I gave him like a 117, 112 type of deal. I think that's what my score was. So imagine my surprise. I heard a split decision, and I heard a split decision for Ogawa. Boxing, that's all you can say. I mean, boxing. I mean, it's, the judges clearly probably favored Ogawa coming forward and everything like that. And, I mean, more than the defensive stuff. And then that's, you get that. I felt for Farmer. I really did. I really did. Because I know now if they try to appeal to the IBF to get another shot, I mean, most likely, I mean, he's going to have to go up, because I'm pretty sure Ogawa's going to take that belt back to Japan in his title defense. So, yeah, we'll see how things go. with this. But I felt for him because I thought he did win the fight, and I thought he won it clear. But it's boxing judges. It's bad judging. It's sad that I'm immune. I'm immune to this in a way. Is like you kind of expect it sometimes, and happens. So yeah, the main event was Orlando Salido versus Mickey Roman. Now this was a fight that on paper that is like, okay, this is gonna definitely be a fight of the year caliber, and it was. It had ebbs and flows for days. But in this case of Salido, I think the well finally ran dry. I mean, starting with a knockdown, I think it was in the fourth round, and he tried to battle back, and then he got knocked down again. And later on, a couple of rounds later, and then finally in the ninth round, I mean, he stood his ground and he went out on his shield, but it was just he just took the third time he went down the ninth round, the referee waived the fight, and I'm thinking to myself, oh man, I was hoping that this fight would be 12 rounds or something like that, but it was not 12 rounds because they tried to make it for an interim belt, which HBO did not want for whatever reason. I don't know. I don't know the politics and everything on that, so it was just a 10-round fight. Luckily, the fight actually ended within 10 rounds. But yeah, Salido, I mean, he looked old, everything. Like, although he had his moments in the fight, but he clearly, I think, the years, the altar wars, it caught up to him. That's what you can say. And, he went out in a blaze of glory. Roman, of course, gets another credit for actually putting an end to yet another notable fight. I think he also was the final opponent of Ponce too, and it was probably the catalyst of why Mira is not fighting anymore. Because if you remember, he had that violent brawl earlier this year, and that HBO card that was just absolutely ridiculous to watch. The level of brutality that was in that fight. So, I mean, Roman finally got himself another victory. Hopefully, maybe another shot, get a shot at probably a title holder at 130 if he deserves it. Salido, of course, in this interview, pretty much said, that was it. I'm done. I'm done retiring, and he should. I mean, he might as well go out. I mean, I know he probably wants to go out with a win of some sort. But at this particular point, is like you might be risking some damage. You know, of course, he's had so many wins right now. He probably should be damaged by now, But hey, some people are just, boxing. Some people are just built different. Some people are built to fight. And so he was one of those guys. So hopefully, I do hope he does. If he says he's retiring, he stays retiring and he stays retired, and salute him on a great career, a long career. So yeah, so yeah, those are my thoughts about the fights from yesterday, and yeah, as I'm about to go out, buy my Timbs, buy my sweats, and go deal with the snow in my car. So, till next time, peace.